Hi, my name's Jen Campbell. I'm an author. I write stories. I'm also disabled, and 4 years ago I was chatting with fellow disabled authors James and Lucy Catchpole about how we didn't get to read many books by disabled authors when we were growing up as disabled kids, and how that was a shame, and we would love to have had a book like that. So we decided we would create one. So this is the book in question. It's called Owning It, Our Disabled Childhoods in Our Own Words. It's edited by me, James and Lucy. It is illustrated by Sophie Camlish. It's available as a paperback, ebook, and in audiobook form. And it has 22 pieces in, written by disabled writers who are writing about what it was like growing up as a disabled kid. So we've got writers talking about school life, friendship, hospital visits, birthday parties, anything and everything in between. Some of the pieces are really funny, some of them are quite emotional, and we are so thrilled to share this book with you. We thought we would ask some of the authors to share the beginning of their pieces in this video here, so you can get a taster for what to expect, and maybe you'll want to go and pick up a copy of the book yourself. So first off, I'm going to read you the beginning of mine, which is called Lobster Girl. School trips always make me nervous. Mostly, I like being at school. I like the rules, the timetables, and the smell of textbooks. I know what to expect. I know what I'm supposed to do. All of those things make me feel safe. School trips are different. During school trips, bits of the outside world creep into the school world, and I don't know how to feel about that. We live in a small village, so everyone knows each other, and most of the children in my class live on the same cul-de-sacs. They play in the streets in the evenings, have water fights over fences in the summer. I've been invited to join in a couple of times, and each time I find it overwhelming. I can't get over how much everyone shoves each other, racing down the road and tripping over shoelaces, the cuts and the bruises, and sometimes worse, all while laughing and joking and having fun. Aren't you worried about breaking something? I want to ask. Aren't you worried about ending up in the hospital? I try not to say these things out loud because I know they will laugh at me. I know that lots of them already think I'm boring. They think I'm a scaredy cat and a teacher's pet and generally just a bit weird. I try not to mind, and it's easier not to mind when I'm at school, when I'm dressed the same as everyone else and we're all doing the same things, but school trips aren't like that. Everyone breaks away into their friendship groups from outside school. There's a lot of whispering and joking around, and I feel a bit lost.
Hello, my name is Rebekah Taussig, and my piece in Owning It is called Teddy Bear Island, and today I'm going to read you just a little bit of it. More than almost anything in the world, I wanted to fit in. It was more important than figuring out long division or being kind or drawing something I was proud of. The only problem with this goal was that fitting in wasn't something I could really do, at least not in the way I'd imagined it. I'd been using a hot pink wheelchair to get around since I was 6. I wore leg braces that were strapped against my shins with brown Velcro. I used the bathroom in the nurse's office while everyone else used the stalls. Every single person in my 5th grade class was different in some ways and the same in others, but everyone noticed my differences right away, and there wasn't much I could do to hide them. It's not that the kids in my school were mean to me. People didn't make fun of me or call me names, but I found myself alone a lot, sitting on the edge of the playground or relegated to the very end of the lunch table, the only spot my wheelchair could scoot under. Every once in a while, I was even a trend. For a week or so, the kids in my class would clamor to be my helper. It wasn't an official title, but a self-appointed role. They'd get in line to push me to recess or carry my lunch tray. It wasn't a literal line, but a list I stored in my desk to make sure I kept it fair. If someone wanted a turn, they had to wait until everyone else on the list got a chance. I thought it should feel good. Isn't it nice when people want to be around you? Instead, I felt a little more like the class hamster than anyone's friend. An object of affection, but not an equal.
Faking It by James Catchpole. People always want to know what happened to my leg. They did when I was a kid, and they still do now that I'm 40-something, so I'm going to tell you. It's a good story. You ready? My leg never really felt like part of me, and this feeling grew over time, so that by the end of primary school, I'd started to feel I'd be better off without it. And as soon as I started secondary school, I knew it was time for action. So off came the leg. My parents were a little anxious, it must be said. They worried for my health. But I reckon it was my decision by that point. I was 13 after all, and they couldn't really stop me. I just did it myself one morning before school. Left my leg there, on the bedroom floor, and off I went. Best decision I ever made. I hope you've worked out by now that the leg I'm talking about was my fake leg. If not, then that last scene must have looked kind of dramatic in your head. Was it messy? Sorry. I can tell you now, no home surgery involved. No one had to shampoo the carpet. Now, the leg I ditched at 13 was the false one, and that's what we called it, my false leg. And that's how it felt to me by that stage, like a fake, a counterfeit.
Hello, my name is Imani Barbarin, and I have a piece called A Word to Live By for Young Imani in the anthology Owning It. So here is a little excerpt from that piece. A Word to Live By for Young Imani. Dear Imani, Mom has always told you about the importance of words. You know what she says. Once you speak something into the world, you cannot take it back. Once you write words down, put pen to paper, those words exist within the world to be made real, traveling from your mind to the page. Let me guess where you are as you read this. You're 11 years old, so probably seated at the kitchen table, stewing over an empty page in a composition notebook. Mom is cooking in the kitchen, or, if not, standing directly over you as you finish her assignment, of course. Her giving you extra homework after school irritates you, after all. You've already spent a long day in the classroom and have 2 or 3 hours of homework your actual teachers assigned ahead of you. As hard as it is to accept now, she's doing the right thing. I could tell you she later becomes a teacher in elementary school and finds an outlet for that educational energy. If it's any relief. Mom wants you to do a free write, to write about anything you want. The freedom before you is intimidating, and your mind starts wandering. Your brother before you, given the same assignment, has chosen protest instead. But you just want to get it over with. Maybe choose the memory of a feeling. Maybe choose one word you have complicated feelings about. Words can be like a magic or a curse, though Mom would never use that term. They have the power to captivate and free, demolish or create, isolate or embrace. And even when you struggle to find them, they are there, waiting for you to come out to play like a friend you've known since kindergarten. You've learned their curves and edges. Words can be warm embraces, daggers, inclusion, or pathway back home. You decide how you want to use them, how to pluck them from your mind, to navigate where you are and direct you to where you want to be. They impact your life in real ways, in school, in relationships, and they even turn strangers into friends. Know their power and handle with care.
Hi, I'm Kendra Winchester, and my piece in Owning It is called Smile. The moment I see the sign for the children's hospital, I slink down in my seat. I hate doctor's appointments. Hey, Chickie, my mom says from the driver's seat. I turn my head and look at her. My mom has that expression she always has when she's trying really hard not to sound annoyed. I said, when we get to the doctor's office, I need you to be nice. She puts a lot of emphasis on be nice. I roll my eyes. Are they always nice? And I say, Mom clutches the steering wheel harder as she says, no, you always try to be a smart aleck. Please don't embarrass me this time. I'll try. No, she says with a no-nonsense look on her face. You'll obey. Today is not the day to push. Sure, whatever, I think. But I know better than to actually say that out loud. As Mom turns to the hospital complex, I see the glass front doors of the lobby entrance and hold my breath. Our minivan spirals down into the underground parking garage, and I drop lower in my seat. Mom glances over at me as she looks for a place to park. Can you at least try to have a better attitude? Could you at least try to smile? Inside, I feel the coiling in my chest. If I try to answer her now, I know I will explode. My mom pulls into a parking spot. If you want to go to camp later this summer, I need you to make an effort. I close my eyes tight. I don't want to be in this fancy hospital in the city with its well-dressed staff. I feel frumpy in my secondhand oversized clothes. I hate standing out. I can't stand the way the doctor looks at me and my mom, like we should just be grateful he's even agreed to see hillbillies like us. But all that stands between me and one glorious week of camp is this doctor's appointment. At camp, there aren't any doctors or blood tests. The other kids don't make fun of the fact that I'm homeschooled because I'm so sick. No one cares about my clothes. I can just be me. After my mom parks, I hold my breath and I step out of the van.
My name is Alex Wegman, and my piece in Owning It is called How to Belong. Here's the beginning. When you think of an athlete, what do you picture? Fitness, agility, speed, strength, and coordination come to mind, right? Composure, confidence, fast reflexes? Well, this is a story about a girl who possessed almost none of those. It's me. I'm the girl, and I was born into a family of athletes. I've used a wheelchair since I got too big for a stroller. My parents noticed my development wasn't moving along like it should when I was a little under a year old and not rolling over or reaching for my toes the way babies who are going to walk usually do. They took me for some tests and were told by doctors that I was a disabled baby and would be disabled for the rest of my life. When my mom and dad got that news, they didn't let go of their expectations that I'd be a busy, happy kid with friends and my own interests. So I had a pretty typical childhood when it came to those things. One of the ways they helped to foster that was by sharing their interests with me. I grew up in Minnesota, USA, a state with a reputation for gritty, active, outdoorsy citizens. Dad was a gym rat. My brother played hockey and football, the American kind. And my sister played hockey and volleyball. And my mom, she ran cross country and track, high jumped, biked, rollerbladed, skied, and snowshoed. She also played broomball, which is kind of a cross between ice and field hockey. You wear sneakers with suction cups on the soles, and you hit a ball around on an ice rink with a broom. Yes, it's weird, but when you live in a state that transforms into a frozen tundra for half the year, you'll turn just about anything involving ice and a stick into a sport. Oh, and she played softball, too. Less weird and requires no explanation. Actually, she still does most of those things. Mom's an upper limb amputee, born with no right arm from just above her elbow, and sports were obviously naturally her thing. So from disabled mom to disabled kid, I was always being encouraged to try new sports at the local adaptive recreation center, which was called Courage Center at the time. It was a magical, fully accessible building 40 minutes from my house, with a pool, gymnasiums, physical, occupational, and recreational therapy, camps, driving instructors, a lending closet for things like track wheelchairs and hand cycles, and more. I wanted to be like my mom, and Courage Center was the very best place to try.
Hey, my name is Sora Kasuga, and my piece in Owning It is called Totally Normal. Here's the beginning. Psst, what's our plan? I felt a sharp elbow in my side. My friend Daniela was yelling in a whisper as our class walked through the quiet hallways of our school towards the yard. It was break time. Daniela eyed our teacher warily, her long, dark hair falling across her face. Want to go climb around? I whispered back. Yeah, she grinned. As soon as we reached the end of the hallway, we burst through the doors into the blazing Arizona sun. We ran as fast as we could for the pull-up bars. It was important to be the first ones there to make our claim. The silver bars stood tall against the blue sky. They were supported by poles that had been red, white, and blue at one point. Now, the paint had mostly flaked off. We hung by our knees and our elbows. Sometimes we would hold on with both hands, swinging back and forth before launching ourselves into the soft brown sand beneath us. I loved climbing around. I would pretend to be an Olympic gymnast. We had just started to figure out how to do multiple flips around the structure when Daniela started looking tired. "Let's get water," she said. "Go ahead. I'll be here when you get back." "Okay." She dashed off. As I dangled under the bar getting ready to try another round of acrobatics, one of the popular kids ran towards me. She had perfect blonde curls and bright blue eyes. She was outgoing. Other girls wanted to be her. I wanted to be her. She never talked to me, so I was surprised to see her come over. She skidded to a halt. "Let me see your tongue," she shouted. I looked around. Daniela was across the yard at the water fountain. Under the bright sun, the bar suddenly became too hot to hold. I let go and dropped down to my feet. Even the sand felt too hot to stand on. How did this girl know my tongue was different? Were other kids talking about me?
My name is Grue, and my piece in Owning It is called Wheels on Ice. It begins like this. Was there a moment in time when I came to think of myself as disabled? In one way, it felt gradual. My muscles did not grow the way my body grew, so while I got taller, I also got weaker. It was a little like swimming against the waves. I learned to do new things: reading, writing, building ever more complicated structures out of Lego. But every year there were things that became more difficult for me, or that I could no longer do at all. I could walk, but I couldn't run, and getting up off the floor became difficult, and then impossible. I got my first wheelchair at 8. I loved it from the beginning. It had a powerful electric engine and controls that looked like those of a tractor. And I could ride it, and it made me less exhausted. So it was like I was swimming, and mostly keeping my head above water. But then suddenly a big wave would crash over me, and this could happen very suddenly.
Hi, I'm Nina Tame, and my piece in Owning It is called All Bodies Are Good Bodies, and I'm going to read you a little bit of the beginning of it now. United Kingdom. What's got 2 legs and a hump? Nina. As far as jokes go, that is a bloomin' rubbish one because, well, basically, it's just facts. I do indeed have 2 legs and I do indeed have a hump. I call it my lump on my back. Hi, I'm Nina, the 2-legged humped person. I was born a long, long time ago, way back in the 1980s, when we didn't have mobile phones and our tellies only had 4 channels. Now, this may sound like a terrible way to live, but we did have a cartoon called Count Duckula, which was about a vegetarian vampire duck, and you could get sweets for a penny, and for some reason, the orange and blue Smarties in a tube just tasted way better in the 80s than they do now. So I still think we had it pretty good.
Hi, I'm Polly Atkin, and my piece in Owning It is called My Own Words for My Own World. And this is the beginning of it. I still dream sometimes of the second school I went to, the one where I spent most of my school days. I dream myself back there, lost in the maze of its endless staircases, its nonsense corridors. In my dreams, it grows and shrinks. The stairs become wobbly ladders, rooms fold into rooms. I search for classrooms and find cupboards. I search for toilets and find more stairs. There is no map or guide to it, but there wasn't one in real life either. This school was a patchwork of big old houses linked by a wide, single-storied highway with squeaky lino on the floor. 100 years before we had our lessons in them, our classrooms were living rooms, bedrooms, drawing rooms and kitchens for Victorian families, families for servants who needed secret staircases to scurry up and down. So each block had 2 sets of stairs, A wide one with banisters so tempting to slide down they had brass knots screwed into them to stop you, and a narrow one, squeezed into an awkward shape, hidden behind everything. I remember a small room on the curve of those stairs. The school nurse sat in that room, and it was called the halfway house, as though the stairs were a mountain we had to climb. Our locker rooms were basements dug into the sandstone beneath, where metal grates blocked off tunnels that disappeared into the guts of the city. We called these the dungeons. The cool breath of ghosts sighed out of the dark mouth of those barred-off tunnels, and I was scared to walk past them in case I got dragged down. In my dreams and my memories, the corridors and stairs are constantly moving with people, children and teachers, like busy roads, impossible to cross from one side to the other without being knocked over.
Hello, my name is Jessica Kelgren-Farzad, and my piece in Owning It is called Naughty or Sick, and here's the beginning. We'd come to an uneasy truce, Miss Hill and I. Me, slightly jaded 8-year-old who could be inexplicably injured by a pile of leaves. She, primary school receptionist, head's assistant, administrator, disciplinarian, music teacher, occasional dinner lady, and nurse. The school really should have hired more people. Neither of us enjoyed seeing each other. Poor Miss Hill. When she signed on for first aid training, she can't have been expecting to deal with a child whose limbs stubbornly refused to stay in their sockets, who got sick with every bug going, tripped over leaves in the playground, and had managed to fall down every single step in the whole school at least 5 times in her first year there. So, she might not have been expecting to deal with me, but she had to, and far more frequently than she wished to. Understandably, her face changed in the first couple of years, from sympathy to oppressed, "Could you at least be quiet this time?" as she silently made me wriggle my limbs and follow her finger with my eye. There's probably a spot in your primary school that you remember the best. Under the big tree, hopscotch, the art room. Mine is the 3 hard, bobbly, honestly quite putrid-smelling, faux woolen chairs that lined the corridor between Miss Hill's office door and the headmistress's. Fall over in the playground? Sit on the chairs. Push someone over in the playground? Sit on the chairs. Which made anyone sitting on the chairs an object of rabid fascination for any child walking through the main corridor. Why exactly were you sitting on the chairs today? What villainous crime had you committed? What terrible plague were you spreading? Who were you there to see? Naughty or sick? Naughty or sick?
Hi there, my name is Eugene Grant. My piece in Owning It is called Disabled Heroes. And this is the beginning of it. Who are your heroes? When I was at school, I was asked to write about my heroes and role models. I can't remember the list in full, but I remember choosing 2 skateboarders. I wrote their names, Jason Acuna and Pancho Mola. I wrote them down beside others, freedom fighters, suffragettes, civil rights activists, the names you'd expect to find on such a list. With the stroke of a pen, I made these men members of a special league of history-defining people. Not everyone agreed with me. Not everyone recognized their credentials like I did. My teacher wasn't impressed. Apparently, skateboarders didn't belong with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi, those who had sacrificed everything for justice and equality. Well, I thought, she's free to write her own list. After all, these are my heroes and role models. And I related to these skateboarders not just because I was a kid, whose entire world was skateboarding, but because they looked like me. Because they had to awesome like me. I didn't get the chance to explain myself to the teacher back then. So here it goes. Thank you for listening.